Hello, I'm Nadia, and you may know that I've spent some years researching my father's military records from World War II in the Polish Army. Now, if like me, you don't speak Polish, doing this kind of research can seem quite daunting. So today I want to share some tips and hacks that I've learned about searching foreign language websites, which will make the process easier for you to be able to navigate and find the information that you're looking for. So today's topic is the Military Historical Office website. There are several other places that you can look for information about relatives, and I'll cover those in separate videos. So the URL for this website is shown down here at the bottom of this slide. And the first tip that I want to share with you is that I would recommend using Google Chrome as your web browser. The reason for that is that in Chrome, you get a drop-down menu here where these three dots are in the top right-hand corner. And if you click on those dots, you'll get a drop-down menu which includes the option to translate. So this is what that looks like, and you can see that you have an option to select English. This makes life much easier, at least for getting an overview of where everything is in the database. There will be documents within this that you'll need to download, and unfortunately you can't get an automatic translation of those, but I will help you with that in a moment. So when you come onto this website, you'll see that there are a number of navigation tabs down here. And I'm really only going to briefly touch on this first tab here to show you some of the things that you might find here. But in the main, I'm going to be talking about how you can search the Central Military Archive, which is located in Warsaw, using the online search engine. On that first tab, which is called the Military Historical Office, I found quite an interesting recent news article which I wanted to share with you, because I was quite surprised to read that the archive is currently holding about 1,600 personal effects belonging to Polish veterans, and they actually invite relatives to come forward to claim these items. The photographs in their gallery show the granddaughter of one of these veterans coming to the museum to collect the items belonging to her relative. And you can see it was quite a treasure trove of documents, photographs, medals, watches. And so this might be something that could be of great interest if you're lucky enough to find that the archive holds these types of records for your relative. Now, the only way to find out whether the archive has anything belonging to your relative is to first conduct an online search in their archive to find out if they have any matching records. If they do have a matching record, you have to fill out paperwork requesting them to retrieve whatever that record is from their warehouse. And it's not until they access that you'll be able to find out what is the nature of what's contained in their archive. So the main archive is located in Warsaw, and it's called the Centralne Archiwum Wojskowe, often abbreviated to CORE. So this central military archive, fortunately, can be searched online from your seat at home without having to physically visit Warsaw. The records that are contained in that archive date from World War II and before. In addition to the archives that are held in Warsaw, there are also other subsidiary archives in other cities in Poland. But I'm not going to talk about those because, as far as I can tell at least, it's not possible to search online whether there are any records of interest there, which means that you have to physically go to those archives to search whatever they have. And secondly, the records that are held there, as far as I can understand, date from the post-World War II period. So I'm going to focus on the Central Military Archive, and the next slides will talk about how to navigate the website in order to locate any records that may be of interest. To find the search engine, you want to go to the home page and click on the Central Military Archives tab. That will give you a drop-down menu, and the first item you'll see is called Resource Finder. Click on that and you'll come to this page, which is the core resource search engine. So what I would recommend if you're looking for a relative is to select the tab that says Personnel Databases and enter the last name. Now I've entered my last name here because I already know that there is a record in this archive under that name. This is just to illustrate how to go about doing this. I would leave the other fields blank, at least on your first go through, so that you're sure you haven't missed anything, and I'll explain why it's worth keeping a broad search to begin with. And then at the bottom, it asks you to show which field you're sorting by, and in this case, it's the last name. So just enter those two bits of information, come over here to hit the search tab, and then you'll go to a new page. I have quite an unusual surname, so in my case, when I type my last name, there's just one record that comes up. This is my uncle Mikhail, who was deported to Siberia in 1940 and later escaped to join Anders' army. I want to just quickly point out a couple of linguistic hazards in using the AI translation tool in Google, which in general does a really good job on this website, but there are just a couple of things that were a bit off that I want to point out. So the first thing is that this field up here called signature is short for Signatura Sprawy in Polish, which really translates to case number, not to signature, as Google has rendered it. So that makes a bit more sense of what it is that field relates to. And the other thing to say is that Google will translate names of people and places into English in a way that doesn't make much sense. So the place name here is Risica, which Google has translated to stylus, which is nonsense. So keep that in mind as you go through the database. I've also heard that there are some spelling hurdles to overcome in the database that were a result of some of the veterans having been deported to the Soviet Union. And so their names may have been translated from Polish into Russian and back again into Polish, and in that way have become corrupted within the database. Now, I haven't seen an example of that myself, but I've heard that that may happen. So this is why I recommend that you first do a search just using the last name. Hopefully that hasn't been corrupted too badly. But keep an open mind as to whether something odd may have happened in translation that might cause you to miss a record. So it's important, if you've got other information about your relative, perhaps their place of birth or their date of birth, that could be very useful to help you pinpoint, is this the correct record for my relative, even if there could be some spelling inconsistencies. And this is especially important if you have a common last name that throws up lots of different hits. The record that came up for Uncle Mikael is shown here, X3388. And if I click on details, I get this page, which tells me where this personnel record is located. So it's in a collection of files of Polish soldiers who were killed, missing, and deceased. You'll need to make a note of that because it will be requested on one of the forms that you'll need to fill in if you are requesting a record. And then down here again, you can see it shows the same case number as I showed you before, and also the place of birth and the date of birth. To request a copy of any of these records, you'll need to go back to the home page, click on the Central Military Archives tab, and from the drop-down menu, you'll find a tab that says Information about Resource Sharing. Now here you'll find everything that you need to know about how to use the archive, but I've distilled the take-home message here for us, which is that for each record you request, you'll need to fill out 4 separate forms, which they call appendices, number 1, 4, 5, and 6. Now, from this page in the website, if you click on any of these numbers, that will take you directly to the page where you can access the forms and fill them out. The archives recommend that you complete the forms online using your keyboard, and then when you're done, you can save that as a PDF for your own records, but you'll need to also print a hard copy because they want to see a wet signature with the date before you scan those documents, and these scanned records are what you're going to email to the archive staff at this email address provided on this page. I'll show you the email address again right at the end, so there's no need to make a note of that just yet. I'm going to include in the description of this video a downloadable PDF which gives you a copy of all the information I'm about to go through with you, so that you can print that off and have that handy for reference while you're completing your own forms. So I'm going to go through each of these 4 forms, starting with Annex 1, and at the top of each page I've included the URL for these forms, so you can simply copy that and paste it into your browser so that you'll go directly to the form on their website. So this first form, Annex 1, I've got a few slides that cover this. It's the longest form. So the first one is all about who you are in using the archive's resources. So the fields that you need to complete online are all of the ones that have this light grey colouring. Any fields that are white in colour are for use by the archive office staff, and you can't complete those online. So what they want to know is all about the applicant's details. It's not too taxing, so they want to know your first and last name, your home address, your correspondence address if that's different, telephone number, email, and they also want to have some kind of identification record. So I provided my US passport number, but you get the picture as to some kind of ID is required in order to use this database. You remember when I showed you the record that came up for my Uncle Mikael? I found a page that told me which personnel database category his record was located in and what the case number was. So this is where you'll need to fill out that information in this field up here. And they also want you to check one of these boxes to explain why you want this information. I checked the genealogy box because he was my relative and I'm conducting research into my family history. But if any of the other fields are a better match for the reason that you want to retrieve a record, then click that. Down here, they want you to confirm that you've read the regulations, and this is one of the places that you'll need to date and sign a hard copy of the form. This is the last section of this first form, and I've translated what this statement says. It's all to do with protecting the personal rights and personal data of the individual whose records you're requesting. And once again, you're asked here to complete the date and provide your signature here. If you want to, you can also attach anything that you think might be relevant to this. I mean, I didn't attach anything myself, but in theory I could have provided a death notification for my uncle, which I have in my possession. I didn't think it would be particularly useful in this search because I already have a record number for them to locate. So I just left that blank. But you can use your own judgment as to whether you think there's something else you can share with the archive staff that might be helpful for them. So let's go on to the second form, which is called Annex 4. And again, I've put the URL for this form at the top of the page, which will take you directly to the online location. And this is called an order voucher. So you're kind of officially requesting the archive to retrieve this record here. The fields to fill in, it's Part A and Part B for each individual record you request. Starts with the first and last name of the person to whom the file relates and the reference number from the archive. They want to know the date of your application for that record, and they want to know your first and last name. You are the ordering party. And again, this is a field that you will need to sign, print off and sign. To complete Part B, this is simply a duplicate of what's in Part A. And when you come down here and click on a field to start typing, you'll see that it automatically populates with the information that you already entered for Part A. So this is not too taxing, quite straightforward, seems a bit redundant, but that's how they want the forms completed. Okay, on to Annex 5 now. And again, the URL for this form is up here at the top of the page. And this is called an order for paid reprography, which is taking a photograph or scanning a document that's located in the archive. So the fields here are that they want to know all about the purchaser, so that's you. They want to know your first and last name and the name of your organisation, if there is one. You need to put in your telephone number and email and your physical address. This field down here, they want to have some kind of explanation of what kind of research you're conducting. So I explained that I was conducting research into my family history, genealogy. Next, they want to know how you want to collect the copy of whatever's in their archive. So you have two options. You can either show up in person and check that box, or you come along here and request shipment. So I checked this box. I want them to mail a copy to me. And then next they want to know who they're going to be billing for this service. It's not free. There is a nominal charge for the reproduction. And also you'll have to pay the cost of mailing from Poland. Finally, they want to know what your tax ID number is. Now, I assume that that's probably not relevant if you're not a Polish citizen. So I just said that I was a US citizen in here. And so far anyway, nobody has come back for more information. Down here, they want you to tell them again what is the reference number that this pertains to, and also whether there are any comments regarding this record. For example, do you want to specify particular page numbers? Well, in this case, I have no idea what this record contains, and so I left it blank because I need to find out what they have. And finally, Annex 6. So we can go through this one pretty quickly because it looks as if it's identical to the last form that I showed you. But there is a difference down here at the end, because what they want to know in this field called document description is you need to enter the word kawoszk. That's Polish for entire. So this is to make sure that you get everything that they have located in their archive pertaining to this record. So the instructions tell you to enter this word in that field. And in addition to that, you need to specify what resolution you need. So for most purposes, 300 dpi should be adequate, but if you're doing some kind of special project and want to blow an image up, you might need to request a higher resolution. So this field here is where you specify that. If it's anything other than 300 dpi, they're standard. Okay, so now we've got all of our completed forms ready. And this is the email address that you're going to send them to. Once the archive staff have retrieved the record and have found how many pages of any documents might be contained there, they will then calculate the fee that you owe them to reproduce those documents. So there's a nominal fee for that of between 50 and 75 cents per page. But they'll also have to calculate the shipping costs, which will depend on the number of pages, of course. Now, because the archive doesn't know what their total cost is going to be until they've actually physically retrieved the record from the warehouse, it's not until this whole process has been completed that they'll send you a payment request by email. All of that takes about 1 month, and then in addition you'll have to wait for the physical mail delivery to arrive, and in my experience that can be pretty slow from Poland. So that's it. I hope that you found this guide useful, and I wish you good luck in searching the archive. I really hope that you find something useful.